Hi, I'm Clark.
And I'm Emily.
On Sailing Vessel Temptress.
And this is our April 2020 adventure log. We are still in the Bahamas. We are still in Exuma. We are still in Georgetown. Our anchor hasn't moved.
Our anchor hasn't moved, which we couldn't say last year because it drug all over the place. But we are sheltering in place, which means we've chosen to stay in the Bahamas, so we have to follow their rules. We chose to stay in the Bahamas for a lot of reasons. Partly it's kind of where we wanted to be, but also we like the rules. It has made this island very safe. There are no cases here. Mm-hmm. And then we're out on a boat off the island. We have a moat. So we feel very, very safe from a disease point of view. Mm-hmm. But the rules are we can't pleasure sail, we can't move, we can't travel unless we choose to travel back to the U.S. or another mm-hmm. country anyway.
So we're staying right here in this mm-hmm. boat, in this bay, exactly where we are.
And we haven't touched dry land in over 40 days.
Yeah, that's a new record.
Yep.
Definitely a record for me. Record for you?
I once did 30 days when I did a long crossing.
Uh-huh.
I would stop at a few places along the way to rest, but I had no reason to get off the boat, so I would just wait for weather to be more appropriate and continue. And it took me 30 days to get from Puerto Rico to Key West.
Mm-hmm. But just because we're stuck on our boat, I mean, you've seen our COVID-19 and our prepper video. We've got everything we need right here on the boat. But there's a lot of people in the community that are helping deliver things to boats. So the last 100, between 50 and 100 boats that are left, we've got groceries, we've got fuel, we've got all the things we need. People bring them to our boat, so we're all taken care of. So it's...
Yeah. So we do have fresh vegetables and that. They're just brought right to the boat. Very convenient. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, we have no need for fuel. We're all solar. Mm-hmm. We're just doing fine. We make our own water.
Yeah. It also makes for a very cheap month. Our budget for this month, let's take a look at that. This was our least expensive month so far this year in 2020. Our food budget was $287. We usually spend about $300, $350, I think. We spent $20 for trash disposal, which costs a little bit more because we have a boat come out and get it now. $113 for communication, which includes our internet, our data, our phone numbers. I spent $15 for a bag of soil so we could start growing some food. I had done some experiments with coconut husk, trying not to use soil to grow some things. It's just not working. So I caved and I got some Miracle Grow. That was $15. And we spent $12 on some medicine for your eye. Mm-hmm. So, by the way, he's not blind.
Yeah, I'm not blind.
Things are going well. So our total for this month, for April, was $447. Our monthly average this year is $761. Mm-hmm. So our budget is always $1,000 a month, and we are less than half of that this month, which is pretty awesome.
It's becoming a cheap year.
Yeah, it's becoming a very cheap, inexpensive year for us, which is great because last year we really, really spent to stock up the boat and prepare so that we could coast through this year pretty mm-hmm. easily. Projects. Well,
we're anchored into this little bay, and it's great. It's really protected. But when the wind stops, we can get bugs. Actually, let me talk about this thing.
Okay.
Okay. Last time I was back in the States, I guess it was the time before the last time, I bought everything I could from China that might deal with mosquitoes just to try everything. Absolutely everything was crap except this. You want one of these. We'll put a link to it or something like it down below. It's some ultraviolet LED lights that attract bugs. And then there's a little computer fan and it sucks them down, and then there's a filter in the bottom that you can empty. And they end up dying a miserable death down in the filter. And we find that, like, if there's bugs flying around the boat, we can screen up, but there'll still be those 3 mosquitoes or no-see-ums. Turn this thing on, and in 10 minutes, they're not bugging us anymore. They all get sucked into this thing. And they're not terribly expensive, and
less than $20,
well worth it.
Yep. But now we have something even better.
Yeah, okay. Last year, we put on that big solar array. And part of putting the big solar array was, well, what are we going to do with all this solar power? It was really more than we needed the way we've been living. We put a microwave on board, but that doesn't really use that much power because it uses it for a short period of time. And I thought, air conditioning in the aft cabin where we sleep. So I looked and looked and looked, and I found a compressor that just had incredibly good numbers, very, very low power. And I built my own air conditioning system. Well, all that time when my eye was messed up, I was laying on the couch, couldn't move, I thought about it and thought about it. After I was able to get up, I started the project, and it's in and it's working, and it is so incredible. We hit a switch, the whole aft cabin is cooled down within like 4 minutes to 5 minutes. It uses 16 amps at 12 volts to run full out, and once it gets the room cold, you know, it cycles on and off like an air conditioner does. By morning, lately, it hasn't been too hot in the mornings, but when we get up in the morning and I check it, it's averaging 4 amps, which is nothing. It's just using, that's like 2 fluorescent lights to keep the cabin dry. And we just hit that switch, close down everything, not a bug, no sweat. It's just so nice. And our clothes should stay much drier, and it's just going to improve life, especially next season. If there's a vaccine and we can travel again, when we get ourselves down to Colombia and Panama, I've been down there, trust me, there is sweating involved.
Yes. And yes, he will do a video about the air conditioning system and how he built it, all the components and the parts, how he put them all together. It's pretty incredible to have air conditioning on a boat that does not require a generator and that can be installed in such a small space.
It uses up no important part of the boat, really.
Yeah.
And like she said, there are boats around with air conditioners, but they have to start a generator. So they have to do maintenance on the generator. They have to listen to the generator. They have to fuel the generator. And this thing runs off solar panels and batteries. And
it's less than $1,000.
Yeah.
So, and that's buying all the parts, you know, individually for our system. So it could be
if
cool.
I ever made them commercially, they'd be a lot less than, the cost would be less than $1,000. But anyway, it's reasonably made by mortals, and it's so much less power than any of them that are commercially available. Very happy with that.
In addition to the air conditioner, this summer we took off the servopendulum wind vane and sold it to a friend, so we've had this big hole in the back of our boat that I plugged with some wood when we were back in Stewart, and I've just started the process of stripping the letters off and doing a bunch of epoxy work that I can do now that I built my own little boat. And so there's going to be a little bit of filling of that, and then I can paint that, and we're going to do all the topside paint while we're in the water here with the paint that we have.
Yeah, so Temptress will look, well, much newer than she has for the last few years. And we had some new graphics printed before we left, so we have, it'll say Temptress, Seattle, Washington again, in fresh new letters.
Yeah, but if there's a time where we don't need transom letters on our boat, it's right now, because all of our neighbors have been here for a month. They all know where we are, we're not traveling, so it's time to do that. And the project that never, ever, ever ends...
Well, it's a 50-year-old boat. And about 6-7 years ago, the deck boards the glued down deck boards. They're not screwed down, so there's no holes and there's no waterproof issues. But the teak deck boards started coming up. They got so thin it came unglued. And I said, well, I'll glue them back down. Well, that worked pretty well. So I machined some teak and put new boards in where they were bad. And I've been doing that on and on and on. I'm still doing that now, and I'll probably be doing that for years to come. But little by little, we're replacing the teak decking. And it's working out pretty well. I probably could wipe it all off and put all new on easier, but then I'd have to do something to bend the boards. But when you only do a couple boards at a time, you can just kind of shim them with quarters and keep the angles all the same, and it looks really good.
And he's also been consulting with other people who are aboard the boats when they have fridges break and things like that, getting on the radio, getting on WhatsApp video chatting with people, and have you tried this, show me that.
You'd be surprised what you can fix just by saying to somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, hook that wire to that wire. What happened? Oh, that's your thermostat. Okay. This is how you fix it, or I have a spare. I've sold like almost all my spares, but we're keeping the fleet together because the option of just taking off and going to Nassau and getting something is not an option right now.
So, yes, boats take lots of work all the time. It never ends. Moral of the story. Let's see, activities and daily life.
Well, the biggest part of our day-by-day life, what always gets in the way so nothing else happens, is general community organization. Is that the term you would like to use?
I guess so. We've been doing the VHF radio nets in the morning, and now I have a couple people who help me do them on the weekends and help me do the afternet where people ask Q&A back and forth, one-on-one, so we've got that, but we also talk to the island administrator a couple times a week. We've been working on writing up. We'll have an idea for something that helps make life easier, but also is good for the Bahamas at the same time. And he'll say, can you write that up and send it in an email? So we'll type it up and send it in an email. And actually, one of the things, like 2 days later, the Prime Minister was making a speech, and one of the things he said was one of the things we suggested, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah. We're writing proposals that are being seriously considered by law, for law at the highest levels.
Yeah. But
Nice about living in a small country.
Yeah. But even aside from that kind of like formal community organizing, we are working, like we have between 5 and 10 boats in this bay at any given time. So and there's a minimum grocery order, and there's a lot of like single sailors who can't come up with a $150 minimum grocery order. So I'll collect all the orders, sort them all out in an Excel spreadsheet, and then dish back the amounts to people, and then they'll just deliver all the groceries to my boat, and people come pick them off the transom. So organizing things like that. Organizing the entertainment on the radio every night, murder mysteries, trivia competitions, all kinds of stuff. And this month we kind of realized when we hit less than 100 boats in the harbor that we kind of all started to know each other. A lot of these people we've never met. We've only talked to on the radio and talked to on Facebook. And so we kind of decided this last 100 boats thing was sort of significant. So there's a woman here who does graphic design. She's on one of the boats, so she designed t-shirts for the last 100 boats. And somebody wrote a song for the last 100 boats, so we put that together. And everybody sent their footage of all the stuff they're doing while they're under lockdown, so we made a video of the last 100 boats.
Yeah, that kept you busy.
Yeah, it's become a really cool place to be in Georgetown.
And she's become like a music video professional now. A friend is a professional musician wanted to showpiece some of his music.
Yeah, so doing a lot of video work, putting the last 100 boats video together, but also there's another video I've been working on for a friend of ours who's also a boater who wrote a song.
We'll put a link to that here. She did all the graphics.
Did all the animation for that. So I've actually learned a lot about video editing this month, even though we didn't edit any of our own videos very much. Let's see, what was I talking about? So community. Yeah, Georgetown has become a really cool place to be. There are other places in the Bahamas that seem to be a little more liberal about boaters going ashore and doing things. We're kind of stranded out here, as it were, but at the same time, we've got this community. We're able to pull together, get the things we need, so I'm kind of glad we're here in this particular area in Georgetown. And Georgetown has always been a great place for boaters, but I think it's proving to be a good place for boaters even in the worst of situations.
And they've been talking about a strong and early hurricane season. If something came, this is where I'd want to be.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
Yeah. So community. This month is basically our daily life, and we're all doing it from this tiny little boat.
What's your best part of this month?
I haven't even thought about the best part of this month. I think making the music video for the last 100 boats was pretty rewarding to see everybody send in their footage and get to see some people I'd never seen some of their faces before, to see them sitting around playing games or doing Tai Chi on their boat or whatever they were doing that they sent us. It was cool to see it all come together and to get the response from people that they kind of, we're kind of like this big family here. That was pretty cool.
Well, for me, the biggest thing was not going blind.
You're not blind.
I'm not blind. I was seeing flashers after a fairly severe wound to my eye. I am very myopic, which means my eye's a certain shape, and I used to have to wear big glasses. But I'm one of the first people to get LASIKs, and they told me during the operation, your eye is still that shape, and you're predisposed to a detached retina. So if you ever see flashers, you expect it's a detached retina and deal with it. Saw flashers after the wound. Talked to ophthalmologists over the phone, and they kind of thought you either have a detached or a torn retina. So kind of worked on that premise. And then after 3 weeks of lying on the couch not moving and 1 whole week of blindfolding myself, I got a chance to talk to another ophthalmologist who suggested that maybe it's not that. Nobody's looked in my eye, so we really don't know. But it's something called PVD, which is posterior vitreous dislocation. The goo inside your eye has pulled free. It's exactly the same symptoms, but you don't go blind. Mm-hmm. And I think his logic was, you've gone 3 weeks and you're not blind yet? Well, it's probably this. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I've been up, I've been moving, I've been doing things, and it wasn't getting better until I got up and started doing things. And now it's improved significantly. I still have a little vision loss, but it's pretty
But you
good.
won't be sporting a piratey eye patch anytime soon.
It's still
Just
useful
good.
eye.
I'm glad that you're good. Worst part?
Well, worst part, I like that air conditioner a lot. It's part of my best part.
Oh,
It's just
we're not done with the best yet.
So sleeping comfortably and having something that I've been thinking about for an entire year actually work.
Yeah.
That meant a lot.
There'd be a lot of nights we'd be falling asleep and he'd just start talking about, I'm thinking about this, or how is this going to work? Or he does that a lot. He has a project and it just lives in his mind and it evolves and it evolves and evolves until he can actually make it done. Even if there's like one screw that needs to be put in, he's not going to be done until he's done. And then when he's done, that's maybe why you've been sleeping so much.
Push a button and coolness works, so I can relax.
Yeah.
On to the next one. Well, you said worst part. What? I don't know.
Drama, I guess.
Yeah, drama. Tell us about
The isolation, I think, brings out the best in people, but it also brings out the worst in people. When you tell people they can't leave their boat, and they can't do this, and they can't do that, and there are all these restrictions, there's always people who are going to feel threatened and out of control by that. And I think for the most part, with the last 100 boats that have been here, everybody's really been in compliance with all the rules and the things that we've been asked to do, but there have been a few people who have just taken their dinghy ashore to go shopping with the locals. And just things like that, or a new boat will come in from, who knows where there might have been exposure to the virus or something, and people just hop aboard and say, hey, how are things going? And so it's been a little bit of a challenge, and as the net coordinator, I don't know how I got this job, but sometimes it's like, hey, Emily, this is going wrong. What are you going to do about it? And I'm not the principal. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. There's drama everywhere, even in the boating community.
some people who have left, and we're very glad they've left.
How are we choosing the life we live rather than letting life happen to us?
Well, writing up the proposals and having the first one become law already is kind of interesting. I grew up in we both grew up in small towns. I grew up in a very small town. And basically everybody was the government. We had a guy down the street named Al Sharpsey, and he was the mayor, but it was just a guy in his house. But if you were a good person, people would listen to you. You'd all get together, usually at the fire hall, and come up with an idea, and that's what would happen. This is sort of that level of town, island, but also country. It's a real small place. So if someone has a good idea and they know somebody, we've had our works in the hands of the PM. Like I said, he turned it into law. We've had another opportunity for the full-time undersecretary, which is like the part of the government that doesn't get elected in and out. So I see it as very powerful reading our stuff. It's kind of neat to be able to contribute it that way.
Yeah, it's a good position to be in. Other stuff about intentional living, I've been doing a lot of thinking just in the past week or so about our life and our kind of impact that we're having in terms of the environment and, not having kids and all the things that we've decided to do in our life and how that all adds up. And I'm still sorting through it in my head a little bit. I think I might make another video on it. Not that we don't have other videos to finish, but I think there will be more coming on the intentional living front soon.
Good.
I think lastly, I just want to say thank you to a whole bunch of people that are making life good in Georgetown.
These are people that are taking it upon themselves to bring things out to boaters who can't go ashore. And for many of the boats here that don't have like a water maker or they rely on generators, this is allowing them to eat and drink and live. So this is no minor stuff.
Yeah, there are other places in the Bahamas where you just can't get stuff, and that means that people basically have to leave the country. And honestly, Georgetown could take that attitude and just say, boaters should leave. And that is the attitude, I think, of some people. But we have what we need here, and I think we are welcome here. The island administrator appreciates boats and the fact that we don't have jobs that may have been lost that impact our ability to contribute to the local economy. We're a valuable part of the Georgetown community, and they want us to come back next year and all the future years. So
Yeah.
I think we're doing pretty well here in Georgetown. Some of those people that we want to thank, Roston, a Valiant Marine Salvage. He's an awesome dude. He got stuck away from his boats that are up in the Abacos dealing with still Hurricane Dorian stuff.
He borrowed/rented a boat from a friend. He bought a water tank, put it on board, and he's ferrying water out to people at no cost. He's ferrying fuel out at fairly low cost. I don't think he's making any real profit on that. Picks up garbage, delivers specialty items. If you need a piece of wire from the hardware store or something, he's the guy taking care of it. And we just found out that he hasn't been charging enough. We don't use him that much because we're pretty independent. And Emily made a GoFundMe, is it, page?
Yeah, Go
for
Get
him?
Funding
Go Get
online.
Funding, because GoFundMe doesn't work in the Bahamas. So, well, we'll link to that probably, or point at it
So
somehow.
we've been trying to thank him as much as possible and utilize his services, but also give back to him so that he can keep his business going. Because he started doing this with the idea that this lockdown was going to be like a couple weeks, and now it's been extended till May 30th. So there's lots of need, and he's going to have to continue doing what he's been doing kind of at a loss. So we're trying to raise some money for him, keep him going. Also thanks to Monica and Mike at Exuma Markets. They right away said, we'll deliver groceries with our boat. There was no gap at all. The restrictions came out and they said, we got you covered.
Ellen and Mark are two people that have houses on shore, and that gives them liberties we don't have. So they're organizing a lot of things and collecting products so that Roston can bring them out to us, keeping all legal, but just making things accessible to us that wouldn't be accessible otherwise. It would be a very different life here if these things weren't there.
Yeah, if these people weren't here. I want to say thank you also to our friend Dale on Sixth Girl. He's a musician. He's a good friend of ours. He's probably been our biggest buddy boat, I think, here during the shutdown. It gets kind of frustrating, especially with all the kind of heaps of responsibility that we've sort of inherited as net coordinator and stuff. He's a great guy to talk to and to vent to and to get feedback from, and he's also rushing kind of behind the scenes when it comes to organizing these. He writes these elaborate murder mysteries every week that keep us entertained. He's just an amazing dude. So thanks, Dale. We love you. Wish we could give you a big hug right now, even though it's against the law. But soon we will. And also Len and Shelley on Mohini. Mohini's one of the people who's also helping out with the net now and with answering questions and getting people connected to stuff. And Shelley designed the last 100 Boats t-shirts that we made. So, and she just produced a schedule of all the services that are available too. So all these people are working together to keep everybody connected and sane and, drinking clean water and all the things that we need.
Well, everybody has to be somewhere for this. Everybody's inconvenienced in some way, and our level of inconvenience at least has bright sun and beautiful water.
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty well. We hope that you're all out there doing pretty well too. Let us know in the comments what's going on, how you're faring, how's your budget this month? 'Cause
Yeah.
I assume everybody's probably
Honestly, I'd
saving a
really
lot
like
of
to
money.
know more about how other people are. This is going for even people in the United States, because other than family and our family are just staying at home. I'd like to have some image of what that option is in case we go back to the United States, but we're thinking about other things. We're actually toying with the idea of going to the Dominican Republic if they open up for hurricane season.
Yeah, lots of options. So by this time next month, I hope that we'll have more of a plan for what we're doing for hurricane season, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. It's been like the longest month ever. It really has.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you all for watching, for subscribing, for supporting us on Patreon, for liking us on Facebook and sending us messages. It's really cool to stay in touch with all of you and kind of have your contacts too during this time.
Bye.
Talk to y'all next time. Bye.